I had two amazing experiences. They were when I was 27 and 28 years old. That was a long time ago now. And 27 years old, I had had an abortion 4 years prior. And I didn't want to have that abortion. I really wanted to have that baby. But back then in the 1980s, you know, I don't know if it was the same around the world, but in Canada, it was very shameful to have a child out of wedlock. It was tough on the family. And there was a lot of pressure being put on me by my partner. We weren't married. And yeah, he was from a upper crust family, very, proper family. And they made no uncertainty that this child would not be welcomed in the world if it had been born. But the kicker was I had had lucid dreams about this child. I knew that I was pregnant before any testing. I could smell her. I could see her. I knew her name. I had actually heard her name was Penelope, Penny for short. And so having known her in dream time, it was even more difficult to do what I did. And I'm also Native. I know I don't look it, but I'm Métis in Canada. And there's a throwback in every generation. There's a blonde in every generation, and I'm it in my generation. So, we have these gifts of sight since I was, 3 years old. I've been able to have abilities of, remote viewing or out of body experiences, all of that sort of stuff. So when I say that I saw her, I really had a relationship with this little one before I made the decision to let her go. So I began to drink. I began to drink heavy. And that went on for about 4 years. And I moved to Vancouver from Vancouver Island. I got a job as a bartender in the biggest nightclub, and, life was really happening, but I was drinking so hard. And one night I came to the edge. I drank so hard that I choked on my own vomit, and I slipped out of my body and hovered above my corpse, which was lying on the bed. And I discovered, oh my God, I'm dead. This is what death is. But what was really perplexing was that it was dark all around me. I was expecting, okay, where's the light? Once the realization sets in that, you've died, you expect to see something other than just grimness. It was dark, and then I started to hear the growls. I had an experience for about a year prior of these gremlin-looking creatures, like the movie Ghost. Those little black things that come out of the wall and the floor. I was getting that, and this was before the movie Ghost. So when I saw the movie Ghost, I remember thinking, oh my God, someone else has seen these things, right? I'm not the only one. And so anyways, they started coming out of the baseboards for about a year prior to my death. And they would always start with a growl. I would hear this, and it was, yeah. Anyways, they started to come out of the baseboards, and I'm hovering above my corpse here. Then all of a sudden I heard creaking in the floor in my living room, and the floor started to open up, and a circle began to open in the middle of the floor. And I flew over it and looked down, and I could see that it was a huge tunnel. It went endlessly. But then I could also see something was coming up really fast towards me at full speed. And the realization that this thing that was coming up was a giant snake was pretty terrifying. So I zoomed back and I hovered over my body again. And the snake came up and it looked at me. and it was massive. It filled up, my living room. It was massive. And I didn't know what to do. I was thinking, I was trying to compute all the information, because I was thinking, why the hell am I experiencing this? I was a good person. I didn't have a boyfriend till I was 20 years old. I never tried drugs. I had volunteered all my life since the age of 13. Why in the world am I not going to the light? And why am I face to face with this giant snake? Well, the snake then started to morph, and it became a human, a man. And I realized I was standing toe to toe with the devil. And it was like he put me in a hypnotic state, because I just started to drift towards him. And we literally came toe to toe, eye to eye. And his eyes were reptilian. They were slits, and they started to undulate, started to vibrate. And it was at that moment that I heard a voice inside me. And it was this voice deep inside that was screaming, "No!" And I realized that was me. That was my soul saying, "Don't do it. Don't let him take you." And so I snapped out of it. And I remember coming back, and I was military trained. I was in Air Cadets, 89th Squadron, Victoria, BC. And so I got into my military training intuitively, instinctively. I stood to attention. My chin was up, and I just, I willed him to go. And I called in God and Jesus. I was an atheist at the time. And I remember thinking, okay, if this thing is real, then God has to be real. God and Jesus, be by my side. Be by my side now. And it was just pure will, survival instinct. And to my surprise, God was to my right, Jesus was to my left, and I could feel them, I could see them, I could sense them, and they stood strong. Yeah. And as soon as they came, this thing, his eyes bugged out, and he scooted through the plate glass windows. He was gone, and all the little minions followed him. And that's a condensed version of what happened, But I had the moment that I had an opportunity to actually ask God, why did that happen? Because I thought I was a good person, right? And God said, you were beating yourself up so much, that you were destroying your soul. And he didn't say destroying, because his soul can't be destroyed, but he believed that he had the opportunity to take your soul because you were beating yourself up so much. And he was collecting souls. And so, that was the summary of it. And so I realized right then and there that I had to turn my life around. And they left, and I was left, in an empty room with vomit all over me, and on the bedding. So I stripped the bed, and I started to go to sleep, or try to go to sleep, because I'm back in my body now, right? It was instant. And so I walked back to the bed, stripped off the bed, and I remember trying to sleep, but did that really happen? Oh, Carrie, you're imagining it. I started to go through all of that. And yeah, there's not really a God. I started to double, second guess. And just then I look up at the ceiling, and there's this black cloud that's starting to come into the ceiling again. And I'm thinking, oh no, it's back. Oh my God. And the cloud started to come down, and it was going across the walls. And so I got out of bed, and I started to pray, and I was like, no, there is a God. I believe in you. I'm so sorry. I believe in you. Please come back. Please come back. And the clouds started to come down further and further and further, and it engulfed me. And by this time I got back on the bed, I was giving up. And I literally said, okay, I give up. And it was then that this big booming voice, male booming voice, came in, and it said something to the effect of, just trust, it's all right. And I can't remember the specific words now. I do have it written down. Anyways, so I trusted, and I ended up this black, smoke ooze thing surrounded me, and I found myself drifting, just floating in a black void. It was vastness. There was absolutely nothing. I couldn't see my hand. If I held up my hand in front of me, I could not see my hand. It was just, I realized it was just my conscious mind that was floating in this black void. And that's where I discovered the waves of wisdom. So as I started to think a thought, I realized that my thought would come out of me and it would go into like waves of water that were like a black oil slick, and it would go across the infinite vastness and into the horizon. And then all of a sudden, this bigger wave would start to come towards me, and it would wash over me with wisdom. And it was like air, but it felt like water. It felt like, nothingness, but there's just this beautiful wisdom that would come through. And so that's where my lessons began. And I was given the 5 lessons of life. Well, actually, the 5 lessons of life came in my second death. So let's finish this one. Had many conversations, and I can't really remember what they were about now. Maybe we can go back to that. But at any rate, we had many conversations, and at the end of it, I just remember relaxing and falling asleep in this black void. And I woke up in the morning, and I was back in my apartment. Well, I woke up, and I again grabbed my linen, and I brought it to the door to be cleaned. And I hear this voice as I'm walking to the door. I hear a man's voice, and he's right behind me. And he said, "Go to the door." And I turned around, I whipped around, and I was like, it sounded like a man was actually in the room right beside me. It was so clear, and it was on my right-hand side. And anyway, so I went to the door, and there was a newspaper there. And I remember thinking, well, I laughed because I couldn't read. I was considered illiterate. I read at about a grade 3, maybe a grade 5 level. And so anyways, I picked up the newspaper, and I was like, what am I going to do with this? Right. And I heard, look at the classified section. So I opened the newspaper, and back in those days, newspapers were thick, right? The Saturday newspaper, it was heavy. It was thick. So anyways, I opened it up to classified section, and there was this huge ad. It was about that big, and it was framed, black framed, and it said room for rent, in a communal living environment, and it was in Kitsilano. So I packed up, I phoned, and I went over and took a look at it, signed up right away, and rented it, came back, cleaned up my place, gave notice, and off I went. And that started a whole new life. That was where, in that hippy dippy house, that's where I met Eckhart Tolle and Eric Edmeades. I was dating Eric of WildFit back then. And so, a lot of people that came through that house ended up being quite famous. But Eckhart, he was just a young man back then. And everything that we talked about at our kitchen table and what we called the hippy dippy house ended up being in books, including my book. And so I think the start for Eckhart's, philosophy in quantum physics, that all started back then in 1993 around our kitchen table. So that was pretty cool. So then I'm having an experience where life is going great. I meet my future husband, my first husband. I've been married twice now. And so I meet my first husband, and I'm quite excited because we're engaged after only 2 weeks, which was kind of scary, and I remember thinking, God, am I doing the right thing? Because I don't really know him, but it was a whirlwind romance. And so anyways, I'm back at the hippy dippy house, and I'm putting all the stuff away, and all of a sudden the chest pain started because it was stressful. I was saying goodbye to all my really dear friends, and I really started to question, was I doing the right thing? So anyways, the chest pain started, and I've had these pretty much all my life. My grandmother died at 32. We have a long history in our family. So at 28 years old, it wasn't unusual. And so I had an agreement with myself. Every time that I'd start to get the chest pains, I would bend over and cough, and it would stop the arrhythmia. But this time it wasn't stopping it. So I crawled up on the bed, and I made a deal. Okay, well, I'm just going to lay down, and if it continues, then I'll go to the hospital. Well, as soon as I laid down, felt the stabbing pain, and anyone that's had a heart attack, you know what I'm talking about, that sitting on the chest feeling. And boom, once again, I slipped out of the top of my head, and I was outside of my body. And before I could even react, I looked to my right, and this big brown bird, it was massive. It came swooping down, and it picked me up by the scruff of my neck, my spirit, and it started to lift me up. Well, I missed a part of the story here. At one point, I had an angel came to me, and it said that they were having counsel on me because I wasn't getting my life together. So this is between my two deaths, right? I was dating a young man, Eric, and Eric Edmeades, and we had different paths, but we were trying to force it. We didn't want to leave each other, and yet everything was telling us that we had two different paths, and so finally the 7-foot angel appeared in my apartment with Eric, and he wasn't there at the time. Anyways, 7-foot angel comes in, and she says, "You've got to get home. You've got to get back to the hippy dippy house." Well, that's my name for it. You have to get back home because your timeline is about to take a totally a different path, and if you're not there this evening, you're going to miss that opportunity. So, this is it. You have to go because they're having counsel on you. And I remember thinking, having counsel on me. And after my first near-death experience, I was like, I don't want to experience that again. Okay, well, why are they having counsel on me? And she wouldn't tell me. She just disappeared. But she said, go home. So that's why I went home and to the hippy dippy house, and then broke up with Eric. 3 days later, I met my future husband within 3 days, and 2 weeks later, I'm engaged. So now you understand why I'm having heart issues going, God, Carrie, you're out of control. What's going on in your world, right? So anyways, there I am being picked up by the bird, and we're starting to go into the clouds. And I said, where are you taking me? And the bird said, I'm taking you to the council of men. And I immediately started to sob because I thought, no, I just was getting on in life, and they're going to judge me. This is it, judgment day. So he not drops me, but he gently puts me down. We go through all these clouds, and we go into this white vastness. It was like the clouds opened up, and it was an endless room that was so brilliant and white. It was beautiful. And so he gently placed me down on, it looked like a cloud, but it felt like a chair. But it had energy to it. And he bid me adieu, and off he flew. And I realized, oh my God, I'm alone in this white vastness, but the level of love, it's as they say. And I realized I was in what we would know as heaven. So anyways, I was sitting there by myself, and I was looking down at the chair trying to figure out what it was made out of, because it felt so beautiful. Like the love was just, oozing out of it, and I could feel it filling me up. And just then I could sense someone was standing in front of me. So I looked up and realized I'm face to face with God now. And it was the same person that I had seen in my first near-death experience. And he was radiant. He was really beautiful. So we started to have a conversation, and in conversations with, Creator or the Council of Men, the Elder, whoever it was, Jesus, whoever it was that I met on the other side, it wouldn't just be a telepathic conversation. Everything was thought to thought, right? It wasn't just that. It was also, they would download images, feelings. It was multifaceted. It was like what humanity, I think, can be like. I think that we have the capacity to have this kind of conversation with each other. So it gave me a glimpse of, I think, what is possible for us. At any rate, one of the things that I saw was that there are so many religions on the planet. And my question was, why do you have so many different faiths if you are you? And then I realized, well, I'm seeing God in this figure, in this form, because that's what I grew up with, right? My father was Protestant, my mother was Catholic. And so I believed that God should look this way. And so that's what I was seeing, Creator form as. And then I also realized that Creator, God, Spirit, comes with many different names. And it was like all these names were coming at me and just being downloaded. And so I asked, well, what name do I call you? And he said, it matters less the name that you call me as long as you call my name. And I was like, wow, that's okay. That's really beautiful. And so I then saw that she, the energy brings all of us together through different faiths to the same source. And that is spirit song. So this is all about vibration. This is all about energy. And it's all coming together in the same song. And a spirit song is a vibration for humanity and for all living things and non-living things, right? It's who we are in this human experiment. And so it was really beautiful in that was one of the first lessons. So then Jesus was beside me, and I came later to speak with Jesus. Makes me choke up because I absolutely loved this part of my near-death experience. He was so beautiful. It makes me tear up, actually. That's funny. I haven't teared up thinking about this one. I must be a bit uh, menopausal or something right now. but it was really beautiful. He and I talked about the power of language and how you can break down words, right? And there's meaning in every word, in every language. Like, je suis is Jesus, right? I am, right? And
all that is.
And so many others. Yeah, all that is. Yes. There we go, right? Yes, you know it. Yeah. So we started to play games in different words. Yeah. And that was really interesting. I've got a whole list of them written down in the book. And it's really, it's fun when you start to look at different, words now. And like you say, in different languages as well. So then from there, Jesus stepped aside and we finished. And then he walked away and started to kind of disappear. And then God walked away from me, and he was going in a different direction. And I started to panic because I thought, oh no, this is my judgment time. So I walked forward and I was immediately transported actually into a semicircle table, and I'm sitting in the middle of it, and then it's wrapped around me, and there's all these men in robes with a golden sash, and they look like elders. And then God is right directly opposite me in the center, and to his left is an elder that did a lot of the talking. So this was then revealed to me that this was the Council of Men. And the Council of Men, I don't know who they are, but they come to me every once in a while. And they're like the waves of wisdom, in the black void. And they were the ones, the elder showed me that there's a white void, there's a black void, and there's also a gray void. And the gray void is like the in-between land. It's the abyss that some souls go to before they go into the light. And so, yeah, the lessons of the five life, or the five lessons, sorry, the five lessons of life, that was then revealed to me through the Council of Men. And yeah, it was incredible. So we talked a lot about biology, about how you can manifest, through your thoughts. I saw my first date with my future husband, and during our first date, we had a spiritual experience where we were walking around Stanley Park in Vancouver, BC, and it's a beautiful park. It's right on the edge of the ocean. And as we're walking around, we're starting to talk about just random things. And then I see him have a thought. It kind of protruded like a cone-shaped image, like, in the movie theaters well, we're old enough. We remember the movie theaters would have that glow that would go out to the screen, right? And that's what it looked like coming out of his forehead. And I could actually see, as we're walking, this movie playing, out of his mind. And I remember looking up and thinking, oh my God, I'm losing it. This is something. But what I saw in that movie thought, or light thought, was he was thinking that one day this will all be resolved, and we will be one nation, but in a healthy way. I'm not talking one world government or anything like that. I'm talking like unity, united as one. And so anyways, he got a little quiet after he was thinking that thought, and we hadn't been on that topic at all. And he goes, one day I think, and I said, yeah, I agree. And he goes, what are you talking about? How do you know what I'm even talking or thinking about? And I said, well, I think one day we'll all be one. I think one day we'll all be, like a group consciousness in a really beautiful, loving way. And he was shocked. He was like, how the hell did you know I was saying that? Like, he was absolutely flabbergasted. And I remember thinking, oh no, I've blown this date. He's gonna, yeah, this isn't good. And so anyways, he listened that I decided to be utterly truthful with him. And I told him that I could see this, thought coming out of his third eye. And so he got a little quiet after that. And so when I met with the Council of Men, we reviewed this date and that experience, and they broke it down biologically. They broke it down with the nervous system, with the muscular system, with the whole physiology of the body. And what I saw was that when we have thoughts, little filaments, they're different colors, and they actually look like threads, different color threads, but they come out of both the heart chakra, the throat chakra, the mind, but mainly the third eye. And when you have a thought, it's ignited within your gut and your heart. right? That's where your thoughts actually begin. It's not in your mind. And it creates this chain reaction, and it goes up through your gut, through the to the pineal gland, and it's like that light bulb moment. It ignites, and at that moment that ignites, then comes the projection, and through that come these little filaments that go flying out into the you know quantum soup, and they go searching for a parallel or a corresponding person, place, thing to answer to your thoughts. So that's why worrying is praying for the negative. You can't do that, right? That's what they were showing me, was that you really have to be mindful of your thoughts. Because I think that what I came out of my second near death, if nothing else, is that I think thought pollution is our greatest downfall right now. We really have to clean up our stinking thinking and be conscious every single day of our thoughts. And if we can do that, we're going to change this world 100%. So that means no more focusing on the, the elite and all of that sort of stuff, right? Start changing our dialogue and start talking about the wonderful future that we are all living in here and now. So that was really beautiful. I think this is probably the most comprehensive and in-depth near-death experience I've ever heard of, because there was lesson after lesson after lesson, and I'm just tapping into a few of them. But they were profound, because remember, this is 1993, when not many people knew about quantum physics. We didn't know about parallel dimensions, parallel universes. They talked a lot about SUA, the thing where people take their own, right? And the lives. You have to be so careful about what we talk about, eh? And so we went into depth about that as well, and perhaps we can talk about that again on another conversation, because that's really in depth. But it made me realize that, yeah, that is never an option, because you end up coming back and doing this all over again, and in the same family, same place, same people, same situations, and you get to the same point that you took your time, you took your LIFE, right? And you keep doing it. It's like that endless loop until you actually have the courage to get over whatever it was that was making you exit, and deciding to move on. And so, yeah, it's not an option. Otherwise, you just enter into an endless loop. So basically, I was about to come back, and Creator, I met with God. I met with God, and I was pretty excited, about coming back. Actually, it wasn't at first. I really didn't want to come back, because the level of love was pretty extraordinary there. And so I had my life review, and they showed me in the life review so many things. They also showed me my two girls, because I didn't think that I was going to have any children because of my abortion. And I was told that, too much scar tissue, never going to have any more kids. And so as soon as I found out that I was going to have two girls, actually two more girls, because Penny was my first, and I could hardly wait to get back. So I ended up being with Creator on the edge of, it was like the edge of heaven, and you could see, earth down below, and it was like, okay, all I have to do is leap and go back into that illusion, that place. And Creator then asked me a profound question. He said, if you were to ask me any question before you leave, that you could bring back to humanity and help what would that question be? I mean, I'm 28 years old and I'm a drunk, and I'm thinking, what do I ask him? I was illiterate, and so I I was panicked, and all of a sudden this little brightest light went zipping around, and it came around, and in that same tender spot, it entered and went to the center of my mind, and poof, I understood the question that I needed to ask. And that was, okay, I understand God loves everyone, including the rapists, the murderers, the, people that do the most heinous things. How can that be? And he goes, oh, that's easy, like this. And with the wave of the hand, he did that a couple of times. And immediately I was transported into a different, it was like a room. And in this vastness room, it was just myself kind of floating. And then I could see a person at a table, and everything was very stark, very clean. And then there was another person sitting in a chair, and I realized, oh my God, that's me. That was me before I came to Earth. And she's sitting with the counselor, deciding what they're going to learn, what we're going to learn, before she came to Earth. And so, long story short, I learned that everything that we are here to learn and to participate in, it revolves around the 5 lessons of life. And that is to come from a place of forgiveness, compassion, faith, trust, and unconditional love, right? And not only applying it towards others, but probably more importantly, applying it towards yourself. Because when I was asking, why did you bring me back for my second death? Why did I die? They said, well, you're neither dead nor alive. You can make a choice whether to stay here, and you will die. You will be considered dead. But we wanted to bring you back because, again, you weren't loving yourself as much as we love you. We need to show you how much you are loved. Because I was looking at the relationship with my future husband and thinking, well, I came from the other side of the tracks, I was that long history. And he was like a Norman Rockwell painting kind of family. And what if, they don't like me? What if I don't fit in? All that sort of stuff. And I just wasn't loving myself. And so they brought me back to give me these lessons as well. And that was pretty much it. Then I came back and started life. 2 years, actually, it was a couple of years later. It was 1996, 97, when we had a 3-time convicted pedophile after my oldest daughter. By that time, I got married to my husband, and we had our first daughter. She was 2, and a 3-time convicted pedophile tried to enter our house and kidnap her. And that was the start of 17 years as a volunteer to write and amend 14 laws in Canada to protect children. So I became a national child advocate, and I learned to read real fast. And I had an assistant named Catherine. That in itself is a movie, because she just appeared. I don't know who she is. She would phone or email me, and I would say, Catherine, I need information on raising the age of consent. What have you got? Any studies? And she would email it, but then she would read it on the phone. And if I could hear it, it was there, right? But reading it was a real struggle. So thank God for Catherine. So she was actually the unsung hero in all of this. She wouldn't reveal who she was, because I think she was part of either a wife of like a senator or something to that effect. Yeah. So she couldn't reveal who she was, but she sure helped. And she gave me a lot of inside stuff. Yeah, it was great. And through that, all these laws brought a lot of American laws into Canada, like Amber Alert, raise the age of consent, sex offender registry, all that sort of stuff. But it was all spirit driven and given.
Yeah, it's amazing that you didn't know how to read by the age of 27 or 28. How old are you? I mean, it's
I
unbelievable.
know, right? Well, yeah.
But then,
Well, I bluffed my way through school. I used to. Okay, so we would have to do these oral, exams where you'd stand up in front of the class and you'd talk about a book that you all read. Well, I would go to school early in the morning, days prior, and I would interview my classmates and say, well, what did you think about the book? And what was your favorite part? And I gathered enough information. I actually gathered skills, interviewing skills at a very young age. And so my communication was great, but, I couldn't read.
yeah, I'm better in writing than I'm communicating verbally. So this is why I don't speak too much in my interviews. I just listen. But I'm better when I write. I can express my thoughts very well and write. Anyway, now.
Well, I don't know. I think that your English is extraordinary and you're very good with communication, so that's not a problem.
Thank you very much, Carrie. I appreciate that. Now, you mentioned the word, very interesting. You said thought pollution. And when you said that, I thought right away about the location where you live. Let's say you live in, I don't know, a slum or in a ghetto, New York or Detroit. That's going to be one kind of thought pollution. And then you move to a beautiful location in Portugal. I don't know where you live in Portugal, but let's say it's a nice, idyllic place. And that's going to be a different thought. I wouldn't call it pollution. It's going to be different thought energy. And that affects people very much.
Very
affects
much.
your life so much.
I agree. And that's why when people go to holiday, locations, they feel better. The air feels more fresh. The sun is shining. There's just the feeling of an oasis, right?
Yeah.
Because everyone's feeling that collectively. So imagine if everyone started to feel that way in their own home.
Exactly. Yeah. So that's why the change of scenery is so important. To change so you can compare, immerse yourself in a different kind of thought pollution or thought energy. You just enter a new thought energy around you, and that floats through you, through your body, through your mind, and through your soul.
It actually even goes a bit deeper. It goes a bit deeper in the thought pollution. The thought pollution for me is, remember when you have that thought, those filaments go out there. Well, we know now that TV shows that aired in like 1945, they are still going endlessly into the multiverse. There's an energetic footprint that is playing. And if you could, decipher the molecular structure of that footprint, you would be able to watch that TV show, in many lifetimes from here, right? And it's all of our energy, all of our thoughts are out there, and it's starting to get more and more polluted, thicker, right? With this fog. You think about LA and the thick fog that sits above. That's what I see as a remote viewer. That is, well, they call it the fourth dimension, right? We're living in the third dimension. The fourth dimension is like this haze, this white noise that is above us. And then the angelic realm, etc., is in the fifth dimension and above. So when you're waking up at 2, 3 in the morning, the reason why they wake you up, spirit wakes you up between 1:11 in the morning and 5:55 a.m. is that that's the quietest time on the planet. And that's when they can actually get through the white noise and be able to communicate with you most effectively. But I believe that each and every one of us is attached to all those thoughts still energetically. And we, in one instance, we can actually call back all our stinking thinking thoughts and bring them back and condense them and forgive, have compassion for all those thoughts, have faith and trust that, we can transform them into love and light and beauty, and have unconditional love for ourselves and for all our past thoughts. And in that instance, just oozing love into all our past thoughts, instantly they will burst, they will become love and light and joy, and that's what we send out. And that's how you transform the world, right? If each and every one of us takes responsibility for our past thoughts and sends love to them, it transmutes everything.
Yeah. That's why it's so important to put yourself in the right environment. Yeah. Now, another interesting
It's
quote
true,
here.
isn't it?
Yeah. Just to quote you, you said quantum soup. That's an amazing too, if you can elaborate a little bit on that. What is quantum soup?
Well, we look at the air in front of us. And when you realize that it's molecules, everything around us is molecules, right? The chair that I'm sitting on is made of molecules, but they're the same molecules that I'm made up of. So the idea is that if I can get in the same vibration as those molecules, I can put my hand right through that chair. And I've had experiences where things become pixelated in front of me, like the whole vision in front becomes pixelated and starts moving and starts vibrating. That's when you start to see the quantum soup. It was a term that, I can't remember where I heard it first, but it was, probably 30, 40 years ago now, 30 years ago at least. And what I see is that this invisibleness, this air, is not air at all. It's like we're living in a liquid of quantum. It's where, we can use this molecular structure that is all around us. And once we get into the same vibration of this quantum, then that's when you can manifest. That's when you can, you can heal. You can do anything and everything. Everything is possible once you become in alignment with the quantum soup.
Now, you said that you learned a lot of lessons. I'm pretty sure you can write a lot of books about that. Because all this information still goes through you every time you come back into that state. What are the main lessons that you learned on the other side, and how they changed your life, or maybe interfered in your life?
That's interesting. Okay. This one I've never spoken about publicly. And I woke up thinking about it this morning. I thought, oh yeah, I gotta talk about this one. So the power of prayer, right? It's going back to your thoughts, that when you have, when I was in with the Council of Men, the power of prayer, or the purpose of angels, came up in the discussion. And I was asking, well, why are these all men in the Council of Men? Where are the women, right? And what I realized was this is just masculine energy that I was seeing. And there's a lot of feminine energy there, of course, as well. Now, the feminine energy often works in the healing aspect. They are the ones that are answering the prayers. And I then could see what we would know as Earth. And instantly, all these golden beams of light were coming from Earth. And it was almost like I could hear voices in each of those beams or threads of light. And they were reaching up to what we would know as the white void. And it dawned on me, oh my God, these are all people praying. And it was just this golden light filling the earth with all these golden threads. And it was like each one was saying, pick me, I want to be answered. And I came to realize that those golden threads, or thought energy, a lot of people feel that their prayers aren't answered, that they're ignored. But what I came to see was that not one of those thoughts ever goes unanswered. But it's answered in ways that, often we don't want to have that kind of answer. We would like to have a different outcome, like, and I'll go to that. So then I started to see pink and green and purple threads also coming from Earth. And I asked, what is this? And they said, these are thoughts of gratitude, hope, and oh, I can't remember the last one, actually. I did have it written down. Faith. No, faith. Gratitude, hope, and faith. And in that, I realized that, the people that were praying or exuding gratitude, those thoughts were answered as well. And they were answered in even more gifts and more, what they were grateful for was growing, exponentially, because they were being answered, right? And in the golden thoughts, I heard voices, like I said, and the first voice I heard was a woman, and she was praying for her little girl, and she, she could feel the pain of her little girl. And the second thread that I listened into was a man, and he also was praying for the little girl, and deep prayers, right? And then the third thread I listened to was the little girl, and she was praying for her parents to stay together. And this is, I've never spoken about this. I didn't realize at that time that was my future. I was listening to me and my husband as we were breaking up, and our little girl, all having prayers, and my daughter saying, please, can they stay together? And our prayers were answered, not in the way that we thought. Instead, we did break up, which, had they shown me all of that, I wouldn't have come back. There's no way I would have come back to that kind of, it was tough. And, but the blessings, my mom always said, today's tragedy is tomorrow's blessing. And the blessing was that my girls ended up with, he remarried a beautiful woman, and she had 2 sons the same age as our girls. And so, instant family. My girls grew up with brothers, and they're of a different culture. And so they learned this beautiful culture, and they sing Dum Machale, and they dance, and they're just, my little one was the only blonde-haired, blue-eyed at the Gurdwara temple, and it just so much knowledge and faith, again being taught more about what this world is all about, and that is the 5 lessons. So there was blessings in all of that, but boy, I tell you, it was tough. And it wasn't until I didn't put it together writing the book. It wasn't until years later, because I wrote the book, it was published in 2019. And it wasn't until probably after 2020 that I had to rewrite it or reread it. And I went, oh my God, that was me. That was my former and our daughter.
Okay. Now, I would like to ask you about your book. If you'd like to share that here with my viewers about your book, about what you do, your website.
Oh, yeah. Well, the website, again, is still under construction. I gotta get my act together with that. But the book itself, it's still available on Amazon. Eventually, I will put it on my website by itself. And also, I just finished some cards, some oracle cards with it. So each card has a different message, and they're either about, trust or forgiveness, or, one of the 5 lessons. So they're really beautiful, to take a card daily, and those will be available on my website when my website gets finished. And it should be soon. Anyways, the book itself, it won 3rd in the world for spirituality and philosophy, and it's a good little book. The reviews are absolutely outstanding.
Now, let me ask you a question about the name of my show. It's called About Freedom Show. What's your definition of freedom?
Being free from the illusion.
Free from the illusion. Exactly. You know what happened? I got free from the illusion of American dream. I came to America back in the 90s. I went to school over there. And I got back here free of the illusion of freedom. It's not that free.
It's true. It's true. Not at all. That's why I very much love Portugal. It's now my home. Although Canada is my home as well. I go back and forth. I feel like a snowbird right now. But I absolutely enjoy Portugal. The people are amazing. The food is incredible. There's no GMOs. There's no, the control, all of it. It's not there in Portugal like it is in Canada right now under our government.
Sometimes I watch this podcast. It's called Redacted. Clayton Morris.
Oh, I love Redacted. Yes.
Yeah, they live in Portugal too.
Portugal. Yeah.
Yeah.
They're Americans. Yeah. They're fantastic. I absolutely adore both of them, and David as well. But yeah, they're very, very good.